Welcome to another episode of Women Investing in Women. Robin and I take great pleasure and tremendous honor to feature women who are making a difference in their corner of the world to make this world a better place for those around them. Today, we are going to be talking to a young educator who tirelessly commits to helping young women and youth deal with their life challenges, emotional and otherwise, and invests in guiding them towards overcoming their circumstances to thrive in a personal, psychological, spiritual, and academic way. As a teacher and as a counselor, what she does is priceless, and I cannot wait for you to meet our amazing woman from the country of Belize, Miss Devina Bol. Welcome to Women Investing in Women.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for having me today, Dr. Henry.
I am inspired and amazed by the work you do, and I had the honor and pleasure of working with you as part of collaborating to help the youth of the community and specifically your high school. And in the process, I have learned the amount of love and passion and commitment you invest in these young men and women, especially the young women. Why don't you take us through your journey of how you got to this point of being a teacher and counselor, and how has this changed your life?
Well, that is a very long story, but to make it very short is I grew up in PG, Punta Gorda town in Belize. That is a district in the southern part of Belize. The way how I grew up was completely different from where I am teaching right now and living. So when I was growing up, I didn't see education as important. It was only when I started to look at the lives of my sisters and I started to think in what direction I wanted to go. So I ensured that I had gathered I have completed my education. And I simply just wanted to teach, to impart whatever knowledge that I have learned to students as well in my country. So I was looking for a job and I was trying to see where I can get one. And it landed in Cayo, in Santa Elena at St. Ignatius High School. Now, I had previously taught before in other institutions down south. I did my internship at another high school down south as well. And I just simply taught. So I was just simply a teacher. I just simply went into a classroom. I executed my session. I did my activities. Now and then, some students would come and, seek advice on what to do. And I would advise them on how best possible that they can get through the situation that they are seeking. However, when I got to Santa Elena and I started working in St. Ignatius, I took on the post of being a teacher as well as a counselor. And I thought being a counselor is just simply giving advice to someone, academic advice to someone or to a student, and seeing how best I can help them through their educational journey. However, it came to light that many of these students go through a lot of personal issues, a lot of traumatic issues in their life, and it just halted me, and I was stunned, and I realized that there's more to a young individual going through their journey in life and how they can be able to overcome it and become successful in life, to become someone that can make an impact to others in their lives as well. So that is where I am now, trying to see how I can continue to help these, especially these young girls. Because I thought that, the issues that they're going through is not massive. It's not something that you need to cry about. It's something that, hey, I fall, I can lift up again and keep walking. But when I look at these students and I'm seeing what they're going through, I'm hearing what they're going through, they cannot simply lift up themselves. They don't know how. They don't know how to move to the other step. And that it was something different than when I was growing up, because I had my experiences when I was growing up as a young child. I went through a little bit of a harassment when I was younger, and I simply learned how to just get up and move over and continue my journey on, and not worry about that anymore, not having that impact my life. That and I guess it was based on how I grew up. It was based on how my parents brought me up. So I thought, everybody could do that. It's just simply a mindset that you went through something, get up, you continue, you don't let it bother you, and you get through. But looking at these students here, it's not the same. It's completely not the same, because they don't have that support at home. They don't even have parents at home. They don't have that family structure as how I grew up with a family structure. So it makes it more difficult for them to learn how, or to even know how to move on from their traumatic experience that they went through.
I really appreciate what you're saying. What came to mind as I was listening to you is school is often referred to as an ivory tower, where you have all this academic learning, but it doesn't really connect to real life. But you're in the position of doing both. You're teaching academically and you're having to deal with these real life issues. How have you found, what have you done to be able to merge, or maybe you haven't been able to merge them, but you being able to run both tracks of teaching academically and yet be able to provide this counseling in areas that you just assumed the students knew, but that they don't know? How are you able to give them both the academic teachings and here's how to live life, here's how to pick yourself up, here's how to move forward, and then seeing the connection between those two? How are you able to do that with the girls?
With the girls, even the boys, because I would have to say that some of these boys are having challenging times in their lives as well too. And many of them stems from not having parents, or just having one parent at home, and their parents are not there to give them that support that they want, that encouragement, that love that they're seeking. So over the 4 years of teaching at St. Ignatius, and it was a learning process, and it is still a learning process for me, is I'm trying to see how every year I can change myself so that I can help them. In doing that, at the beginning, when I started, I was solely a teacher that looks at academic and didn't care about what you're going through at home. I was like, hey, it doesn't matter. You're here at school, get an education. That's the only way you're going to get out of your situation. So I was very, very strict, to say, with the students, because I wanted them to pass. I wanted them to get a high grade. I wanted them to, excel in their studies. So I didn't bother about the other personal aspect of their lives. It was only after counseling them in the first and second year, learning about these students and getting to know them more. So I had to change my physical appearance a little bit because I know that I'm an individual that people fear. I naturally fear. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it's the face, if it's my natural face or how I appear out there. So students were very reluctant to come to me. Students didn't want, to approach me, to talk to me. So I had to ease down in the classroom. I had to, you know what? I'm not going to drill you guys in getting the content for you to learn the content, but we're going to take it step by step. So I started to use my content and I started to relate it to real life experiences because I teach science and this is a wonderful subject for you to be able to relate to a lot of real life experiences. So it was only by then that when I started to relate my content to real life experiences, where the students be able then to, hey, I can ask this teacher a little question and another question. And it was there that the conversation started to begin. It was there that students started to say, okay, I can speak to Ms. Bol, I can trust her. And that is where slowly by slowly they started to come and talk to me, especially the students that had behavioral issues, because especially the boys had a lot of behavioral issues. The girls were very reserved. They still didn't want to talk to me. So I started off with the boys and they started to come and talk. They started to have a conversation. So we had a conversation simply like, I was someone in the community walking on the street. I didn't take myself as a teacher to them and saying, okay, you have to do this, you can't do that. Or no, I started to take myself as someone that they met on the road and we started to talk commonly with them. I started to relate to their experience. I started to understand what they're going through. And I said, hey, yeah, I know what you're going through. I know this is how you feel in your situation. And that is where they started to open up. So the boys started to have a lot more respect for me. They started to say, okay, I can talk to Miss Bol. I can, joke around with her, and that is where the communication began. Afterwards, I started to see the girls start to come. The girls started to come slowly in. They started to talk to me and they were a little bit afraid to see what they're going through. And they're up to my fourth year in school. Some girls are still a bit afraid of coming to me. But after I talking to them, after they hearing from their classmates or their colleagues about how I respond and about how, I speak to them, they started to say, okay, I am someone that they can come and talk to. They can share what they wanted to share and see how best I can advise them. It was only in my fourth year at the high school that I started to deal with a lot of the more challenging situation that students go through. And it was far more emotional for me. And I try as much as possible to stay, not to get emotional with them, but try to be there, to be strong for them, to listen to them. So that having them coming into my office and hearing what they're going through totally let me change how I at times react in the classroom, how I teach my content. So it totally shifted from me doing traditional tests with them. I just simply eliminated that from me as a teacher. I don't want to give them traditional tests anymore because they're not going to remember anything. They're not going to recall everything that you say in the classroom because they're worrying about their issues at home. So whatever I teach for that one session, whatever activities I give, that is the grade that they're going to be getting, because it's fresh in their mind. They've just learned it. So all they're doing is then applying what they're learning. And, because the next day you come and say, okay, I'm teaching a content for one session and I teach, and you're saying you're going to give them a test next day. From the time they go home, they completely forget everything that they have learned. So it is not productive. I don't see it productive as you teach them a content for today, you test them the next day, because they're not going to excel in that way. And it's not because they have an academic disability in learning. It's just their issues that they're going through at home overpowers their mind and let them forget about everything. So my way of teaching, I have shifted that tremendously. And sometimes some teachers would ask me, Miss Bol, don't you give tests or quizzes? And I'm like, no, I don't. Because I don't believe in giving students tests and quizzes, because they're not going to do good. Then they're going to fail overall. And then it's not a good way to measure a student's knowledge, because it's not like it's their fault that they cannot be able to recall the information. What I also try to do in my lesson is try to make it very much applicable for them. And I try to do a lot of group work for them so that they can start having that cooperation and collaboration with one another. Because one of the things that I find out with students is, because of whatever issues that they're going through, they start to separate, they want to isolate themselves. They want to be, I can do it on my own, I will do it on my own. And, but realizing it, when you're going through traumatic issues or personal issues in life, you need that emotional support from others. And having them working in groups, giving them their tasks, you will find them doing their tasks, then you'll start finding them talking about their issues, starting to talk about their issues within themselves. And I do believe that is a kind of way that they can, bring it out, release it, hear what others are going through, so that they can see how, hey, I'm not alone in this. I have others that will be able to help me. And that is how I have trying to balance the two of them. But it's still a little bit challenging, because the educational system wants you to have grades, wants you to have, these standardized tests that you need to give students, which I feel it's not working anymore for the students. So I guess that is why the ministry is leading to more of a competency-based learning. And it's still a bit new for us teachers, because we're already used to teaching content, traditional tests. So hopefully this competency-based learning, we can be able to learn it and execute it, because it looks at testing, or it looks at evaluating students based on how well they cooperate with one another, how well they have that collaboration to complete a task, how well they are able to demonstrate these skills, these attitude skills, these emotional skills, and not just simply academic skills. So these are the skills that we're testing now, once this new teaching reform comes into play. So again, we'll see how that goes, and it's just beginning. Our school is going to begin this year with that type of learning. So we'll see how well it goes.
Everything you're saying, Ms. Bol, is totally resonating for me. I know these children. I live part of the time in the community, and I have seen the way the students relate to you. And what you're saying and the scenario you're painting is not unique to Belize. It's not unique to Cayo. Children all over the world are going through traumatic situations that prior generations didn't face. And when there are unstable family structures and no two parents in the house, especially for the daughters, when the mother has a significant other that is not a biological father, that creates a lot of risky scenarios. And data shows, even in the United States, 3 out of 5 girls are sexually assaulted by the time they're 25. And to deal with all the scenarios that come in a society where there is no biological father in the house, and girls not having male role models to know what boundaries are and how they should be treated and what is acceptable norm from a grown male to a young teenage female, all of those are issues the school alone cannot teach. How do you see the community members like us, people who are part-time there versus people who are full-time there? How can we as community partner with the teachers to help the youth take a look at life differently and maybe even experience the positive aspects of living in a community?
Individuals like yourself, Dr. Henry, makes a very large impact in these children's lives, because what I have been able to notice is that once you're able to share your experience, and this is what I'm finding with a lot of these young adolescents, is that they want to see or they want to meet someone that has went through the same thing that they are going through, and how did that individual was able to overcome it. So they're looking at you as someone that is like a guiding mentor, and someone that, hey, this person have went through the same thing that I have went through. They are able to have overcome it at various steps, with various assistance and help. And they will take that and say, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. And they will see how they can be able to do the same. So you're like an example to them of how, okay, this is where they have been, this is where I can go, and the same thing that I can do. At times, I would say at times it's a bit tricky, because sometimes, especially the students at St. Ignatius High School, because of where they have come from a low-income family, they would always say, because they have told me as well too, they said, oh, because you are able to have parents that assisted you, that gave you the money for you to go and get your education, for you to come out of it. What if you don't have anybody to have been giving you at least that little lift for you to get where you want to get? And it's difficult then for me to be able to respond to them. But having individuals like Dr. K and others that comes in and say, okay, we're here, we have this amount of resources that is able to assist some of them. And that is what then they look forward to, and they can say, okay, I can overcome what I am going through, because I'm able to see others that will be able to support me, others that care about what I'm going through and how they can help me get past this. So it is very, very important to individuals such as yourself play a very massive role in giving these students an opportunity for them to realize that they are assistants out there, there are help out there, there are others that are willing to see what they can be able to do to help them.
It's beautiful. I'm loving everything that you're saying, and especially the importance of community. I'm going to kind of go a little different direction, and that is that there's a lot of talk now about caregivers and the burnout amongst caregivers. And you in reality are functioning as a caregiver, an emotional and mental caregiver, as well as an educational academic caregiver. So what do you do to keep yourself buoyed up? What strengthens you and inspires you, to face one more day, helping these youth with their challenges?
To be honest, I'm trying to find some way of how best I can be able to center myself, to renew myself, my energy, so that I can tackle another day. One of the things that helps me a little bit, but I still find it challenging, is contacting my parents, my father and my mother, and talking to them about what I'm going through, what I'm hearing. And they talk to me. They would see how best they can help me, see how best I can look at the situation differently, because it do consume my energy listening to what these students go through. And it breaks my heart not knowing that there's not much that I can do as an individual. And even though I try as much as possible to get in contact with the legal authorities to get something done, it just seems to be stuck sometimes. It's like you get stuck and there's nowhere that you can be able to assist that child further. So talking to my parents is one, but then, like how I live way here in Cayo and they live way in Toledo, it's only by a video call that I can do, and that doesn't give me like that emotional support that I wanted. Like, come let me hug you. I mean, a hug makes a very, very big difference. That is what I have learned. And it's very hard that I cannot have my father and my mother to hug me and say, okay, I understand what you're going through. They're only saying it, but I'm still not getting that physical connection to try to help me get through what I have, just witnessed or just heard for in that particular day. I have my little daughter, and I always come home and I hug her as much as possible to try to heal myself as well too. But then it just comes, and I started to think about her future. What does her future look like? What am I doing to make any changes for her future? So it just comes down to being a lot for me. And I try to soothe myself with saying, okay, I did as much as I could possibly do. And I would try to pray a lot. I would try to have a conversation with God a lot, to try to understand what I'm going through, to try to see that what I have actually done with these girls, with these students, is as much as I could. And it's just too much for me. And this year has been really, really a lot. And right now, I am trying to figure out what more I can do for myself to try to how do you say, try to see how I can have myself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically heal. At this point, to be honest, I'm still trying, because everything that had worked for is not working for me anymore. So I am trying to figure out what I can do for myself at this point so that I can be ready for another year with these students, to have that strength for them and not just break down in a classroom with them or break down in my office with them. So right now I'm trying to pray as much as possible, spending as much time with my daughter as possible so that I can, have a relaxed and renewed mindset for the next upcoming school year. My parents are far. I went down to see them just over a couple of days. And I'm back home. But that is helping me a little bit. But at this point, it has just become very, very overwhelming for me this year. So I'm working on that. And I think I am getting there before the new school year begins.
Thank you so much for being so vulnerable and candid, Ms. Bol, because I can see it in you. I can feel it in you as you're talking. And this is a conversation you and I have had in the past about how can we in the community become a support system for the teachers. And ultimately, it comes down to when the social fabric of a family is unstable, then the building block of society is broken. Therefore, nobody has support and nobody has the time to be supportive of each other. And everybody is struggling psychologically, emotionally, and that human moments are not there. So I hear you, I feel you, and let's continue to work on trying to figure out how we bring not just the support system to the students, but also to the teachers, because the teachers' cups need to be full so that they can keep filling the cups of their students every day. Your message is so powerful and so moving. As we bring this to a close, if you had one piece of advice for teachers and community members out there in order to make this a better experience for teachers like you and the students, what would that be?
So I would say just like how students have little summer camps, and we have one coming up with Dr. Henry. I think it would be a good idea to have some of these like little summer camp for teachers as well, especially before the beginning of school. At least at the end of when school closes and the beginning of when school opens, so that teachers can have that renewal and that re-energization back into our next year. And having support from other women in the community, being there to support each other rather than bring down one another, because to be honest, it's hard to find individuals that can be able to support you, other women that will be able to support you and say, hey, I understand. It's rare to find individuals like that. And it is really helpful and really wonderful when we find individuals that are there for you rather than to bring you down.
Beautiful. I know this time always flies by. Every time we have a guest, it's like, oh my gosh, did 25, 30 minutes already fly by? As we wrap this up, is there one golden nugget, if there's only one thing you could say that the people who will hear this once it's released, what is one golden nugget that you'd like to share with the women who will be listening to this podcast?
You never know what someone is going through personally in their lives. So it's just best to give a smile to them, or to, just to be loving to that individual. Even though you are going through your own issues and you're looking at individuals and you feel like they don't know what I'm going through. You never know what another person is. So just be loving. Just be kind, and if possible, share a hug, because a hug makes huge difference to that individual.
That is powerful. That is so powerful. And Miss Ball gets the last word today. Ladies out there, remember, in the true spirit of lifting each other, every interaction you have with another woman, make it about sharing love, sharing a smile, the brightness of your spirit, and whenever possible, give them a hug, hold each other for at least 60 seconds so that the healing power of human embrace empowers and frees you and frees the woman you chose to embrace.